The polished marble floors of the courthouse gleamed like mirrors, reflecting the sharp click of Vanessa Cole's heels as she strode inside. Heads turned as she passed. Not because she was famous, though her father's name carried weight in every business circle in the state, but because she radiated a kind of untouchable confidence that filled the hallway before she even spoke. Dressed in a white designer suit and oversized sunglasses that probably cost more than the clerk's monthly salary, she looked more like someone arriving at a luxury gala than a court hearing. Her attorney, a nervous man named Douglas Price, hurried behind her, clutching a stack of papers. "Vanessa, please," he whispered, already sweating. "The judge is very traditional. You have to show respect. Stand when he enters, address him as, Your Honor. Let me do the talking, and we'll get this over with." Vanessa waved her manicured hand dismissively. "Douglas, relax. It's a speeding ticket. Daddy already called in a favor, right? This whole thing's just a formality." "It's more than a speeding ticket," he muttered. "You damaged city property, and you, almost hit a pedestrian." "Almost," she corrected with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "And nobody got hurt. They should be thanking me for giving them a story to tell." She pushed open the courtroom doors, and the chatter inside died instantly. It was as though the air itself stiffened. The clerk looked up, blinked twice, then pointed toward the defense table. Vanessa didn't acknowledge her. She sauntered to her seat, pulling out her phone and scrolling through messages as if she were waiting for her order at a cafe. Douglas sat beside her, mumbling a quiet prayer. The bailiff's voice boomed. "All rise for the Honorable Judge Benjamin Harris." Everyone stood. Everyone except Vanessa. She didn't even glance up. The judge entered, tall, calm, and impeccably composed. His black robe swayed slightly as he took his seat, setting down a stack of files with deliberate precision. His skin was a deep shade of brown, his hair touched with gray at the temples. His gaze swept the courtroom like a steady current, controlled, observant, powerful. When his eyes landed on Vanessa, still seated and tapping on her phone, the faintest muscle in his jaw twitched. "Miss Cole," he said evenly, "you may stand." She finally looked up, sliding her sunglasses down just enough to meet his gaze. "Oh," she said lazily, "are we doing that now?" She rose halfway, then dropped back into her chair before he could respond. The courtroom murmured. Douglas leaned toward her, whispering frantically, "Vanessa, please, don't." "Mr. Price," the judge interrupted, his tone sharp but not loud, "control your client." Douglas swallowed. "Yes, Your Honor. Of course, Your Honor." He turned to Vanessa with pleading eyes, but she only smirked, crossing her legs. Judge Harris studied her in silence for a moment, his expression unreadable. Then he opened the file before him. "Vanessa Cole," he began, "charged with reckless driving, property damage, and obstruction. You were clocked going 87 miles per hour in a 30 zone and collided with a city light post, causing over $12,000 in damages." Vanessa yawned, exaggerated and unbothered. "It's covered," she said. "My father's company already sent a check." The judge's pen paused mid-note. "I see. And do you believe that absolves you of responsibility?" "I believe it fixes the problem," she replied sweetly. "Money tends to do that." The murmur in the gallery grew louder, a mix of disbelief and judgment. Judge Harris tapped his pen once against the desk. "Miss Cole," he said, voice cool and precise, "this courtroom is not for negotiation. It is for accountability." Her lips curved into a smirk. "Well," she said, leaning forward slightly, "perhaps if your city budget wasn't so tight, we wouldn't be here, would we? My dad already donates to your community programs. You're welcome, by the way." That last sentence hit the room like a slap. Even Douglas's face drained of color. A couple of reporters in the back scribbled furiously. The judge didn't move, didn't blink, didn't raise his voice. The silence stretched so long it felt suffocating. Finally, Judge Harris closed the file and folded his hands. "Miss Cole," he said softly, "you may want to rethink your definition of generosity. Because what you call charity, others might call damage control." Vanessa tilted her head, pretending to look intrigued. "Oh, is that what this is? A lecture?" she said with a faint laugh. "Can we skip to the part where you give me the fine so I can go?" Judge Harris' eyes met hers, calm, steady, unflinching. "You will get your part, Miss Cole," he said. "And I assure you, it will not be the one you expect. The courtroom was still humming with tension when Judge Harris delivered his verdict. Vanessa barely listened at first. She was too busy texting her father's assistant, demanding they handle this nonsense immediately. She thought the judge would issue a fine, maybe a stern warning, and she'd be home by lunch. When he mentioned community service, she looked up only halfway, bored. But as his calm, deliberate words continued, the meaning began to sink in. 200 hours, Judge Harris said, his tone unshaken. At the Eastwood Community Center, beginning this Saturday. You will report directly to the director, Ms. Fields. Failure to comply will result in contempt of court and a revocation of bail privileges. Vanessa blinked, uncertain she'd heard correctly. Excuse me, she said, with a sharp laugh. I don't think you understand who I am. I do, he replied. That's precisely why this sentence is appropriate. The reporters in the back leaned forward, pens scratching furiously. Douglas tried to interject, rising with a polite cough. Your Honor, my client has other obligations. She's pursuing her graduate degree. I withdrew from college 2 years ago, Vanessa muttered under her breath. Douglas froze, color draining from his face. Judge Harris didn't even look at him. Then she should have plenty of time, he said smoothly. Vanessa slammed her phone on the table. This is ridiculous. You can't make me clean floors or whatever it is those people do there. My father is not on trial here, Harris interrupted, his voice still calm, but with an edge of iron beneath. You are. His tone silenced her in a way money couldn't. For a heartbeat, the entire courtroom felt smaller, the air heavier. She searched for a comeback, but none came. Her usual armor, sarcasm, arrogance, entitlement, didn't seem to dent him. Judge Harris just regarded her with the quiet patience of a man who had seen too many like her and refused to be impressed. Miss Cole, he continued, your behavior in this courtroom has demonstrated exactly why this sentence is necessary. You will serve every hour. You will contribute to the same community your actions and your father's negligence have harmed. And perhaps, he paused, studying her with a thoughtful gaze, you'll learn something about the kind of power that money cannot buy. Her lips parted, but no sound came out. It wasn't what he said that stung. It was how calmly he said it, as if she were already dismissed. The judge turned to the clerk, signed a document, and handed it over. Next case, he said. The gavel struck once, echoing like a thunderclap through the silent room. Douglas leaned toward her, whispering, don't say another word. Vanessa, we'll appeal. But she was already standing, glaring at the bench. You'll regret this, she hissed under her breath, not loudly, but enough that Harris' sharp eyes flicked up. He didn't respond, didn't even frown. He just watched her the way a teacher watches a child throwing one last tantrum before learning a hard lesson. Outside, the cameras flashed like lightning as soon as she emerged. Reporters surrounded her, shouting questions. Miss Cole, do you think your family name gives you special treatment? Vanessa, what do you think of Judge Harris' decision? Are you actually going to serve your sentence? She forced a brittle smile. Of course not, she said into one of the microphones, flipping her hair over her shoulder. I'll be done with this nonsense before the week's over. My father's lawyers will fix it. Douglas cringed beside her, tugging at his tie. Vanessa, please, no comment, he whispered. But she had already stepped into the black sedan waiting by the curb. Inside the car, she sank into the leather seat and fumed. He embarrassed me in front of everyone, Doug, she snapped. That man, that judge, he's on some kind of power trip. Making me clean a community center. Like I'm a criminal. Douglas wiped his forehead with a handkerchief. You are technically a convicted offender now, he said quietly. Her glare could have cut glass. You work for me, remember that. He fell silent. The car pulled into traffic, and Vanessa crossed her arms, staring out the tinted window. The city blurred past. The same streets her father's company had developed. By bulldozing half the old neighborhoods, the same neighborhoods now filled with boarded-up shops and struggling families. She'd never really noticed them before. She didn't notice them now, either. She opened Instagram instead, already typing a post. Court drama. Judge had an ego trip. Guess who'll be sipping champagne by the weekend anyway? When she hit post, she felt a flicker of satisfaction. Control restored. Image protected. But even as the likes began to pour in, something about the judge's calm stare wouldn't leave her mind. The way he'd said, "Perhaps you'll learn something," as if he knew something she didn't. As if he'd already seen the ending of a story she hadn't realized she was part of. For the first time that morning, Vanessa Cole felt something she couldn't quite name. Not fear, exactly, but an unfamiliar awareness that her father's name, her money, her charm, none of it had mattered in that courtroom. And as the car drove her away, the echo of the gavel still rang in her ears. The first day at the Eastwood Community Center was nothing like Vanessa Cole expected. She had imagined a gloomy, broken-down building filled with people eager to fawn over her last name, maybe even grateful she was there. Instead, she found herself standing in front of a sun-faded brick building that smelled faintly of cleaning supplies and old paint. A hand-painted sign over the door read, "Together we build," in cheerful blue letters, though several of the letters were chipped. She stepped out of her car, a pearl-white convertible that gleamed in the morning sun, wearing oversized sunglasses and a limited-edition tracksuit. Around her, volunteers in worn jeans and faded t-shirts were unloading boxes of supplies. None of them looked up. A middle-aged woman with short curls and paint-streaked hands approached her. "You must be Miss Cole," she said with a polite but firm tone. "I'm Ms. Fields. I run this place." Vanessa smiled thinly. "Right. The judge's little project. So what exactly am I supposed to do?" Ms. Fields handed her a broom. "Start with the floors." Vanessa blinked. "Excuse me. Floors, Ms. Fields repeated calmly. "Then you'll help repaint the youth room." Vanessa stared at the broom like it was an alien artifact. "You can't be serious." I don't do that." Ms. Fields gave a patient smile. "Then today's a good day to start." The first few hours were miserable. The broom handle rubbed blisters into her hands, dust stuck to her designer sneakers. When she tried to take a break after 10 minutes, one of the teenage volunteers, a skinny boy with headphones around his neck, handed her a bottle of water and said, "We usually take breaks after an hour." She opened her mouth to snap back, but his expression wasn't mocking. It was neutral. He didn't care who she was. By the end of the day, she was sweaty, sore, and furious. She sat in her car afterward, slamming the steering wheel. "This is humiliating," she muttered. "That judge is obsessed with making me suffer." But when she looked at her reflection in the rearview mirror, what she saw wasn't humiliation, it was exhaustion. Real, human exhaustion. Over the next few weeks, she kept showing up, partly because she didn't want to go to jail, and partly because Ms. Fields somehow made her. Every morning, she'd assign Vanessa tasks that seemed impossible: painting over graffiti, fixing broken tables, sorting boxes of donated clothes. And every time Vanessa complained, Ms. Fields would just smile and say, "Keep going." Something strange began to happen around week 3. The people there stopped treating her like an outsider. One morning, a little girl named Lila ran up to her, covered in glitter from an arts and crafts session, and proudly showed her a drawing of a bright red car. "That's yours," the girl said. "You drive fast, right?" Vanessa laughed before she could stop herself. "Used to," she admitted. Lila grinned. "You should slow down. Daddy says only people who don't have anywhere to go drive like that." For the first time in a long while, Vanessa didn't have an answer. By week 6, she was different, not polished, not perfect, but grounded. She came to work early, stayed late, and even organized a fundraiser to buy new sports equipment for the kids. The same reporters who once mocked her arrogance now ran stories about her transformation. She didn't care about the headlines anymore. For the first time in her life, she cared about the people in front of her. When her 200th hour ended, Ms. Fields called her into the office. "You've done good work," she said, signing the final form. "Proud of you, Vanessa." Vanessa swallowed hard. "I didn't think I'd say this, but I'll miss it here." "I know," Ms. Fields said softly, "and so will they." That afternoon, Vanessa walked into the courthouse again, not in heels or designer clothes, just jeans and a clean white shirt. Judge Harris looked up as she entered. "Miss Cole," he said, standing. "Finished your hours?" "Yes, Your Honor." He studied her for a long moment. The arrogance was gone. Her posture was still confident, but there was something new behind it, sincerity. "How did you find the experience?" he asked. She hesitated, then smiled faintly. "Harder than I expected. Better than I deserved." Something like approval flickered in his eyes. "That's an honest answer. I owe you an apology," she said quietly. "For the way I acted here before. And, for thinking I was above all this." He nodded once, a small, knowing smile touching his lips. "Growth often starts where pride ends. Remember that." As she turned to leave, he added, "Miss Cole, I heard you organized a fundraiser for the community center. Keep doing that, not because you have to, but because now you know why it matters." Outside, the sunlight was warm on her face. For the first time, she didn't rush to her car. She stood for a moment, breathing, watching people move along the busy street. There was no audience, no camera, no need to prove anything. Vanessa Cole smiled. A real smile, small and quiet, and walked away, her heels clicking not with arrogance this time, but with purpose.